Thousands of years ago, long before modern cities, airplanes, electricity, or even paper money, a civilization rose beside a river in the middle of the desert. A civilization so mysterious that even today, archaeologists are still uncovering its secrets. The people of ancient Egypt built enormous pyramids aligned with the stars. They created tombs filled with hidden passages. They preserved human bodies for thousands of years. And they believed the journey after death could last forever. Some pyramids are older to us today than Cleopatra was to the pyramids themselves. Think about that for a moment. Ancient Egypt already felt ancient, even to the ancient Egyptians. Tonight, we are going to slowly drift back through time, back to the land of golden deserts, torch-lit temples, quiet tombs, and the endless flow of the Nile River. You'll hear about forgotten pharaohs, mysterious rituals, hidden chambers, strange beliefs, and the everyday lives of people who lived thousands of years ago beneath the hot Egyptian sun. So get comfortable. Lower your screen brightness. Take a slow breath and let your mind wander into the ancient world. And if you enjoy relaxing documentaries like this, you can softly subscribe and leave a like. It truly helps support the channel and allows more calm journeys like this to continue. Now, let us quietly step into ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt lasted for more than 3,000 years. That is an incredibly long time. Longer than many entire civilizations combined. When we think of ancient Egypt, it often feels like one single moment in history. But in reality, Egypt changed constantly across centuries. Dynasties rose and disappeared. Pharaohs came and went. Temples were built, abandoned, and rebuilt again. And through it all, the Nile River continued to flow. The Nile was the heart of ancient Egypt. Without it, the civilization may never have existed. Every year, the river flooded nearby land. When the waters retreated, rich dark soil remained behind. This fertile land allowed crops to grow in the middle of the desert. The ancient Egyptians even called their land Kemet, which meant the Black Land, a reference to the rich, dark soil left behind by the Nile. Beyond the fertile riverbanks stretched the harsh desert. Dry, silent, endless. The Egyptians called this region the Red Land.
Most Egyptian pyramids and tombs were built along the desert edge.
Ancient Egyptians believed deeply in the afterlife. To them, death was not the end. It was a journey, a transition into another world, a warm day. This belief shaped almost everything in Egyptian society. Tombs were carefully prepared. Bodies were preserved. The Egyptians believed a person would continue needing these things after death. The process was long and careful. Special priests prepared the body over many days. Organs were removed and stored in containers called canopic jars. The body was dried using salt. Some mummies survived for thousands of years. Even today, scientists can still study their hair, teeth, fingerprints, and facial features. Great Pyramid of Giza was built more than 4,000 years ago. No cranes, no modern machines. Only human labor, planning, and astonishing engineering. Millions of stone blocks were transported and stacked with incredible precision. Half lion.
No one knows exactly what the Sphinx originally looked like.
Many legends surround it. Pharaoh was considered both king and divine figure, a bridge between humans and the gods. Egyptians believed maintaining balance in the world depended on the pharaoh. This balance was called Ma'at. It represented harmony, truth, and order. Without Ma'at, chaos could spread. Some pharaohs became legendary. Tutankhamun, often called King Tut, ruled for only a short time. Yet he became one of the most famous pharaohs in history because his tomb was discovered almost untouched. Inside were golden treasures, statues, jewelry, chariots, and the famous golden mask. For thousands of years, the tomb remained hidden beneath the sands. When archaeologists finally entered it in 1922, it felt like opening a doorway into the ancient world. Cleopatra is perhaps the most famous Egyptian ruler today. But she actually lived much closer to modern times than to the building of the pyramids. By the time Cleopatra ruled Egypt, the pyramids were already ancient monuments. Cleopatra spoke multiple languages. She was highly educated and politically skilled. Her life became connected with powerful Roman leaders like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Many people imagine ancient Egypt as endless luxury and giant monuments. But most Egyptians lived simple lives. Many were farmers. Their days revolved around the Nile and the growing seasons. They woke early, worked in fields, baked bread, raised animals, and lived in homes made from mud brick. Even children sometimes drank weak versions of it. Ancient Egyptians loved cats. Astronomy was extremely important. Many pyramids and temples were aligned with celestial events. The Book of the Dead was not actually one single book. It was a collection of spells and instructions meant to guide souls safely through the afterlife. Some copies were beautifully illustrated, filled with detailed scenes of gods, monsters, gates, and judgment. One famous scene shows the weighing of the heart. After death, a person's heart would be weighed against a feather, representing truth. If the heart was heavy with wrongdoing, the soul could be destroyed. But if balanced, the soul could continue into eternal life. Ancient Egyptian tombs were designed carefully. Some included hidden chambers, false doors, secret passages, and traps meant to discourage robbers. Despite these efforts, many tombs were looted over time. Gold and treasures attracted thieves for centuries. Still, many incredible discoveries survived. The Valley of the Kings became the burial place for many powerful pharaohs. Hidden among dry, rocky hills, the tomb entrances blended into the landscape. Inside, colorful paintings still remain surprisingly vivid. Scenes from the afterlife stretch across walls and ceilings. Blue, gold, red, black. Even after thousands of years, some colors still glow softly in torchlight. Stone versions have survived for thousands of years.
Mortuary moments existed too.
Families gathered for meals. People laughed. The famous Queen Nefertiti became known for her remarkable beauty. A sculpted bust of her face survived across thousands of years. Its elegance still fascinates people today. Egyptians loved jewelry. Gold bracelets, necklaces, rings, amulets. Jewelry often carried symbolic meaning and protection. The scarab beetle became an important symbol, associated with rebirth and transformation. Tiny scarab amulets appeared everywhere, even in tombs. Many Egyptians believed dreams contained messages. Dream interpretation existed in ancient Egypt. Certain dreams were considered lucky, others dangerous. The boundary between religion, magic, and daily life often blended together. Amulets protected people from harm. Spells were written on objects, and rituals attempted to bring safety or healing. The pyramids at Giza once shined brightly under the sun. Smooth white limestone covered the exterior. Imagine how dazzling they must have looked thousands of years ago, like giant glowing mountains rising from the desert. Over centuries, much of the outer casing stone disappeared, but traces still remain. Ancient Egyptian funerals involved mourning rituals, prayers, and processions. Professional mourners sometimes cried publicly during ceremonies. The journey into the afterlife was taken very seriously. The Egyptian god Thoth became associated with wisdom and writing. These small figurines were placed in tombs. People believed they could work on behalf of the dead in the afterlife. Wood, exotic animals. Some believed the game symbolized the soul's journey through the afterlife. Water clocks and sundials helped Egyptians measure time. The movement of shadows and flowing water allowed surprisingly accurate tracking of hours. Ancient Egypt influenced many later civilizations. Greek and Roman visitors admired Egyptian temples and knowledge. Even today, Egyptian architecture and symbolism continue appearing in modern culture. The sands of Egypt hid countless ruins for centuries. Entire temples became buried. Statues disappeared beneath dunes. Lost tombs waited silently underground. And even now, archaeologists continue making discoveries. Every year, new chambers, artifacts, and mummies emerge from the ancient desert. Ancient Egypt still feels unfinished, as though parts of its story remain hidden beneath the sand. Some archaeologists spend entire careers searching for lost tombs. The possibility of discovering an untouched burial chamber remains one of history's greatest dreams. Imagine stepping into a sealed room, untouched for thousands of years. The air still, torchlight reflecting from gold, ancient objects resting exactly where they were placed long ago, time frozen. The Egyptian language changed over centuries. Different forms developed across different historical periods. Yet, the visual beauty of hieroglyphics remained iconic. Many ancient Egyptian statues lost their noses over time. Still, their expressions remain strangely calm. And as the evening sun disappeared behind the desert, oil lamps began glowing softly across villages. Young scribes trained carefully for years. They copied symbols repeatedly onto papyrus, practicing patience and precision. Some Egyptian texts even describe school life. Students complained about lessons. Teachers warned children to study hard. And parents hoped education would provide a better future. Even thousands of years ago, people worried about many of the same things they do today. The homes of ordinary Egyptians were usually simple. Mud brick walls helped keep interiors cool beneath the desert heat. Roofs were often flat. Families cooked bread in clay ovens, and many slept on woven mats or wooden beds. At night, the sounds of insects and river water probably drifted softly through open windows. Cats wandered quietly through narrow streets. And above everything, The stars stretched endlessly across the dark Egyptian sky. The ancient Egyptians respected the balance between life and nature. The flooding Nile brought both opportunity and danger. Too little flooding could lead to famine. Too much could destroy homes and crops. So each year, the river was watched carefully. The rhythm of Egyptian life followed the rhythm of the Nile. Boats moved constantly along the water. Some carried grain. Others transported giant stone blocks. Colorful sails drifted beneath the hot sun. And at night, lantern light reflected gently on the river's surface. Ancient Egyptian feasts could include bread, figs, onions, fish, dates, honey, and roasted birds. The wealthy enjoyed larger celebrations with musicians and dancers. Offerings were regularly placed inside temples and tombs. One of the most sacred animals in Egypt was the ibis bird. Its curved beak became associated with Thoth, the god of wisdom. Some Egyptians wore protective amulets every day. The Eye of Horus became one of the most powerful symbols of protection. Its great library was legendary. Scholars gathered there to study mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. Though much of the library was eventually lost, its memory still survives. Ancient Egypt also fascinated later civilizations. Greek travelers visited Egyptian temples. Roman rulers admired Egyptian architecture. Stories about Egypt spread across the ancient world. Even today, Egypt continues to inspire films, books, games, and documentaries. There is something timeless about it, something mysterious. Perhaps because ancient Egypt feels suspended between history and myth. Real, yet almost dreamlike. The desert itself adds to this feeling. Wide, empty landscapes, golden sand, ruins emerging from silence, the heat shimmering in the distance. At sunrise and sunset, the pyramids glow with warm orange light. Shadows stretch across the desert floor. And for a moment, time feels very far away. Some archaeologists spend years carefully brushing dust away from tiny objects. A fragment of pottery, a broken necklace, a faded carving. Even the smallest discovery can reveal forgotten stories. Ancient footprints have been found preserved in Egypt. Handprints remain visible on pottery. Finger marks still appear in dried bricks. Tiny reminders that real people once lived there. People who laughed, loved, dreamed. And the Nile The ancient Egyptians believed that every sunrise was a victory. Each morning, as the first light appeared over the horizon, they believed the sun god Ra had successfully traveled through the dangerous underworld during the night. Darkness, to them, was not empty. It was alive with mystery, filled with spirits, trials, gates, and unseen forces. And every dawn meant order had survived one more night. Imagine standing beside the Nile 4,000 years ago. The air is still cool before sunrise. Palm trees move softly in the breeze. A thin layer of mist drifts above the river. Somewhere in the distance, birds begin calling to one another. And slowly, the desert sky turns gold. For the people of ancient Egypt, moments like this were sacred. Nature itself felt connected to the divine. The river, the stars, the sun, the moon, even animals moving through the reeds could carry spiritual meaning. The Egyptians noticed patterns everywhere.
The flooding Nile returned each year.
The stars moved predictably across the heavens. The seasons changed in familiar cycles. And because of this, they believed the universe followed a kind of balance, a hidden order. This balance became central to Egyptian life. Temples were built according to it. Ceremonies followed it. Even the movement of the pharaoh through society reflected this cosmic harmony. At night, Egyptian priests climbed temple rooftops to observe the stars. Without modern lights, the night sky above the desert must have appeared overwhelming. The Milky Way stretching across total darkness. Thousands upon thousands of visible stars. The cool desert wind moving through silent stone columns. Astronomy became deeply connected with religion and timekeeping. Certain stars signaled the coming floods of the Nile. Others marked important ceremonies. The star Sirius held special importance because its appearance in the sky often coincided with the river's annual flooding. To the Egyptians, the heavens and earth were deeply connected. Some of the most beautiful temples in Egypt were built along the Nile. Massive stone entrances, called pylons, towered over visitors. Obelisks reached toward the sky. Rows of carved statues lined ceremonial pathways. As people walked deeper into these temples, the spaces often became darker and quieter. The inner sanctuaries were considered especially sacred. Only priests and select individuals could enter certain chambers. Imagine torchlight flickering against painted walls. The smell of incense filling the air. Gold reflecting warm orange light. Soft chanting echoing through stone halls. The atmosphere must have felt almost unreal. The Egyptians decorated walls with scenes of gods, stars, offerings, rivers, animals, and royal ceremonies. But these carvings were not only decorative. They carried meaning. They told stories. They preserved memory. Even today, archaeologists carefully study tiny carvings to understand forgotten beliefs.
Some inscriptions describe offerings of bread, beer, flowers, oils, and incense.
Others record battles, celebrations, or prayers.
In many ways, temple walls became giant books made from stone.
Ancient Egypt also had gardens.
This surprises many people because Egypt is so closely associated with desert landscapes.
But near the Nile, carefully designed gardens flourished. Date palms, lotus flowers, pools of water, fruit trees, shaded walkways. The wealthy often created peaceful garden spaces beside their homes and temples. Birds gathered near ponds. Fish moved beneath the surface, and flowers released sweet fragrances into the warm air. The lotus flower became especially important in Egyptian symbolism because lotus flowers close at night and reopen in daylight. They became associated with rebirth and renewal. The Egyptians often connected nature with spiritual ideas. Even simple observations could become sacred symbols. Many workers in ancient Egypt traveled by foot for long distances beneath intense heat. Sandals protected their feet from burning ground. Loose linen clothing helped keep them cool, and water from the Nile became essential for survival. Life could be difficult, especially for laborers and farmers. Yet, despite the hardships, Egyptian society produced remarkable art, architecture, and engineering. One reason may have been stability. For long periods, ancient Egypt remained relatively organized compared to many neighboring regions. This allowed enormous projects to continue across generations. A temple begun by one ruler might only be completed decades later. The same civilization kept building, stone by stone, year after year, century after century. The workers who carved statues and tombs possessed extraordinary skill. Some carvings remain so detailed that individual feathers, muscles, and jewelry patterns are still visible today. And all of this was created using ancient tools. Copper chisels, stone hammers, careful patience, and immense human effort. The desert itself became part of Egyptian identity. Wide, empty landscapes surrounded much of the fertile Nile Valley. Traveling through the desert could be dangerous. Heat shimmered in the distance. Sandstorms appeared suddenly, and water sources became precious. Yet the desert also held silence, stillness, and eternity. This may be one reason so many royal tombs were placed there. The dry sands protected the dead, and the vast emptiness created a feeling of timelessness. Some Egyptian burial chambers were filled with incredibly personal objects. Sandals, combs, games, musical instruments, favorite jewelry, small statues, food containers, even flowers. These objects remind us that the ancient Egyptians were real people, not just names in history books. They cared about beauty, comfort, memory, family,
and the hope that life continued after death.
Many tomb paintings show scenes of banquets and celebrations.
musicians playing harps, guests wearing elegant linen clothing, servants carrying food and wine, dancers moving gracefully beneath torchlight. The afterlife was not imagined as empty darkness. For many Egyptians, it was imagined as a peaceful continuation of life's best moments.
The ancient Egyptians also loved stories about magic.
Priests and magicians appeared in many tales. Some stories described enchanted lakes, others cold of curses, mysterious creatures, or miraculous events. Magic was not always separated from religion.
To the Egyptians, spoken words themselves carried power. Certain names and spells were believed to influence reality.
Protective spells were written onto jewelry, walls, and coffin. The sound of spoken prayers echoed constantly through temples.
Some historians believe temple rituals occurred multiple times every single day.
Incense burned continuously.
Priests washed sacred statues.
Offerings were prepared carefully. The gods were treated almost like living rulers. Fed, dressed, honored, and protected. At sunset, the temperature across Egypt
slowly cooled. Long shadows stretched across temples and monuments.
The Nile reflected orange light beneath the evening sky.
People gathered inside homes. Workers rested after long days. And the stars slowly appeared one by one overhead. Imagine how peaceful the ancient world could sometimes feel without engines, traffic, electricity, or modern noise. Only wind,
Water,
voices, animals, and distant music drifting through warm night air.
ancient Egyptian funerary boats were sometimes buried beside pyramids.
These boats may have symbolized the soul's journey into the afterlife. One remarkably preserved solar boat discovered near the Great Pyramid survived for thousands of years. Its wooden structure still visible, as though waiting silently beside the desert. The deeper archaeologists explore Egyptian history, the more human it becomes. Letters survive between family members. Workers complained about supplies. People argued, joked, fell in love, worried about illness,
Missed their families.
and hoped for better futures. Time changes many things. But human emotions remain surprisingly familiar. There were also moments of fear in ancient Egypt. Plagues, political struggles, droughts, invasions, periods of instability sometimes shook the kingdom. Yet somehow, the civilization repeatedly recovered. Dynasties rose again. Temples were repaired. And life continued beside the Nile. The endurance of ancient Egypt remains one of the most remarkable things about it. For over 3,000 years, generation after generation continued preserving traditions, beliefs, and monumental architecture. That is an almost unimaginable length of time. To us, ancient Egypt feels distant. But to the ancient Egyptians themselves, they were simply living their lives, watching sunsets, sharing meals, crossing the river, listening to stories, looking up at the stars, And perhaps that is part of why ancient Egypt still fascinates the world. Because beneath all the gold, pyramids, and mysteries, there were human beings. Real people living beneath the same sky we see today. And somewhere beneath the quiet desert sands tonight, hidden rooms may still wait unopened. Undiscovered paintings, forgotten names, ancient objects untouched for thousands of years, still resting silently beneath the eternal Egyptian night.